It's the old guys this episode. The over 40 crowd. Well, over 40.
Yeah. Yep.
So now we got to do the cold open, Patrick. So you have to tell me about your weekend and try to make it funny. Go. Your holiday weekend.
So I'm supposed to go now?
Yeah, if you want. That's cool.
Oh, okay. Every other weekend, I Zoom with my parents. I call in my siblings. Sometimes we bring in my nieces and my nephews and the great-grandkids, just so that my parents, who are pretty much homebound, can have a chance to see us at least every other weekend, have conversations with us. And
nice.
And for some reason, this week, my parents decided, the screen popped up, their camera turned on, and my mother was wearing a shirt and a tie, and my dad was wearing a blouse and one of her wigs from the 80s. And the strange thing about it is that they stuck with it. They went through the initial laugh and what the hell are you guys doing, to wearing that for the next hour and a half as we conversed with them.
I'm glad they could share their, bedroom preferences with the whole family.
Exactly.
That's what I'm happy about.
It's not like I ever walked in on my parents, but there was still enough hints going through life that I knew exactly what was going on.
I've walked in. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And me and my wife, we've been walked in on as well. So from that side of it, it's no fun either.
There you go. Yeah. That I don't have to worry about.
No.
Well, unless I want to be walked in on by someone,
Unless you hire someone.
I'm inviting them in, text message. Hey, Patrick, what you doing?
Hey, can you come pick up something in my room?
Wow, great cold open. Whoa. It got weird. Welcome, everybody, to our newest episode of Level 1 GM. I am Chad. I am your Level 1 GM. I'm the one figuring out how to do this and trying to enjoy it at the same time. Today, Mike, our usual sort of smirt GM, he is on vacation. And by God, he deserves it. He works really hard GMing and whatnot and taking care of his child. He deserves, some time off. So instead...
So you're saying that during this episode, there are no smirt GMs at all?
Not a single smirt GM.
Not a single one.
I thought today, since we've got our smirked player Patrick, we would jump off of last episode where we talked about GM expectations, and today we would talk about player expectations and I think there's a lot going on there, right? You've got, not only do you have what the players are expecting when they sit down to start the game, but there's also expectations players have of themselves and of other players. And so of course the GM has certain expectations about the players as well. Start us out, Patrick. You've been playing for a while, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it's been off and on, as I stated in previous episodes, that I took a 2-decade hiatus from playing any type of role-playing game other than, PC games. Mm-hmm. So things have changed quite a bit over the years, whereas when I was playing it back in the 80s, it was more about playing the character, not necessarily playing the role of the character. And I think the expectations have gone beyond that, especially with entities such as Critical Role and different groups, such as them, to actually be role-playing and get into the character and character voices and just really immersing yourself into what you're doing.
You make a great point, because the joke to me is always, are you a role player or a role player? Are you a ROLL player or an ROLE player, right?
Oh,
I think there are different kinds of players for sure, and I think each one of those players has a different expectations from the game and from themselves and from their other players. But I kind of agree. I mean, I remember being, first time I played the original Dungeons and Dragons, kids. Okay. The first, red booked set that came out, my friends and we played it. I was probably I was junior high or something. My parents.
Was that Red Book Basic?
Was that an age joke?
No, I'm just asking. Was that the basic?
Yeah,
rule?
that was basic. Yeah,
Okay.
so it was an age joke. Ultimately,
Because I can one up you that
Uh-huh.
I did the version prior
Get
to
the
that.
fuck out of here! Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
my brother played it in college, and he handed all of his books to me. And I went, "Oh, that's
Wow.
fucking awesome." I have since then gave them back to him because for some reason he wrote his social security number on the inside of each one of them. I guess that was a way to locate him if he lost him. I have no idea.
So your brother went to college. Interesting. Okay. We were there, dude. We were.
Yeah.
And I think, looking back on those experiences where we're playing the module, it was more about rolling the dice. I'm like 13 years old, and I'm no concept of the whole idea of actual role playing. So yeah, we talk about you sitting down to play a game now. It's different. I think we're older. I think the games have developed. When you sit down to play a game, with to begin a campaign, let's say, what are your expectations as a player?
My expectations as a player, well, again, it's different. There's what I feel the expectations are of me, what my expectations are of the other players, and what my expectations are of the GM. Is there one that you'd prefer me to start with?
Start with like what your expectations are from, let's say, from the playing experience, starting with let's say the GM. Because that's where that story begins, right? So let's start there.
You'll find that a lot of these overlap with each other, though, as we go through, because I think a lot of the expectations are the same. But I think my expectation of a GM is for that person to set the expectations early and to define the environment with which we are going to be playing. And that's well before the campaign even starts.
Okay.
Because it really gives us time to do our part, which is what his expectations are of us. And that is in order to create and prepare a character that fits in this universe. So I would say my first upfront expectation of a GM is just doing that homework and giving us that information that we need for the universe that we're going to be playing in order to create that character.
So that's sort of that session zero stuff where and really kind of even before that, because let's face it, I mean, at least with the group that we're playing with, we start talking about, a new campaign well before we start playing it. I mean, we're talking about...
We'll say when this one's done in about a year and a half, we're going to start this.
Right. Wow. Yeah, it's been over a year with Cresden. Just saying. That's our fault. I mean, all right. So GM expectations. Let's talk about your expectations of that you have for the other players.
The expectations I have for the other players are expectations that I set for myself. First thing is just doing your homework, and that means many things. It means when you're preparing that character, make sure that you're learning all about the class. You're learning as much as you can about the race that you're playing, and just having everything ready to go, even when you get to session zero, and let session zero be kind of a thing that puts the final touches on the character, that you may have questions to bring up at that point. But there's also, once we get involved with the campaign itself, there are expectations there of being prepared, that when you get there, that you are ready to go. And I will say that I'm guilty of not always being prepared, and I know that it kind of sucks for other people. So that's why I try to mitigate that as much as possible. I think an expectation for me as well is to create a realistic character, regardless of how unrealistic that character is. And that goes into the role-playing part of what we do, Chad. And we can have the most bizarre character, but when we play it, it's the commitment to that player. Yeah. And I think that's a big expectation. We can't just jump in and play a character and be stupid for the sake of being stupid. That has to come through being committed to playing that character.
Right. And I think part of that comes to like the different kinds of players there are. I think about the way that we play, and I think most of us actually, at least in our group, is we play. We're actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're actors playing the characters, and we prefer the role playing, and we deep dive into that stuff. And
Right.
you know, I take for a long time I would take pride in not, as soon as the game started, that session started, I didn't break character. I mean, I was that character through the whole thing, right? I mean, because that was really part of the fun for me. But there's other kinds of players too. They're like, I think about I think Morgan. He's getting better and better at the role playing part of it. But I think he was he started and still kind of is a rules guy, right? He's about the essentially the mechanics of the game. And actually, Bars brings up in chat that knowing the mechanics of the game as a player can let you more easily sort of embody those characters, which is absolutely the case. True, very true. But
however, it can go in the other direction,
right.
And then you become a metagamer,
right?
Which is something as a player you really have to try to avoid as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
If you're committing to that character, you can't let your real life jump in there and dictate what your character's doing. You've got to try to approach every situation with that character as the character would handle
right.
it, as Patrick, would handle it.
What does the character know
Mm-hmm.
versus what do I know after reading, after memorizing the entire player's handbook or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an expectation when you sit down as a player, an expectation of other players that they try to do the same thing.
Right.
You try not to, tell your other players what they should do. Oh, you should totally use that thing instead of that other thing because or why did you pick that spell? That's a dumb spell. And it's like, well, but everybody gets a little something different out of the game,
Right. And that kind of leads me into another expectation, which is I think everyone should try to be collaborative as they're playing. Yes, every character is going to have their own side quest or their own goal to achieve. But I think if you're not being collaborative, then it becomes it's not about the group anymore.
Right.
And the participation as a group is such a strong core of this game and the satisfaction of playing this game that if you feel left out, why the hell would you want to play again?
Right. And that touches a little bit on GM expectations of players. And I wish we had another representative, an actual, like a smirt GM to represent this point other than me, because I am less smirt. I am the not smirt GM. But I will say that I do kind of have an expectation of players when we sat down to do Deadlands, right? My expectation was that you guys would engage in the story that I'm telling. And I don't think that's like a lot to ask, right? It's like, and of course I have the advantage that I've played with you guys for so long that I know you're going to engage, right?
Yeah.
You guys are the kind of players that are going to go, okay, let's help the GM tell that story by engaging in whatever's going on. But not all players are like that. And
yeah, I think some people fail to realize that the GM is a player just as much as they are. If not more, because they have to play multiple characters. So when we're talking about improvising and the yes ands and everything else, I mean, we have to engage with the GM just as much as they engage with us.
Absolutely true. And it can be difficult. I mean, managing that's one of the things that's been kind of difficult for me, and that's sort of managing my level of engagement as a player and maintaining sort of that overall sort of big picture view of the storytelling and the experience in general. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, a GM has to make sure that every single player is engaged every single time for every single minute. That's a lot.
Right, because there's a lot of outside forces that come into it when we're playing. That there are days where you just can't get as engaged as you were the week before.
Right, and
that there are going to be some inconsistencies, but see, that's a lot. That still goes along with player expectations, is being able to notice. Okay, and I'm just throwing this out there, not fingers, but you know, like saying, okay, Phil's had an off day. The rest of us have to pick it up a little bit and kind of help guide him along. That type of thing. We've all been in that situation.
Yeah.
And so I think the ability to read the table is a good thing, and being able to not only help ourselves but help the GM push the story along. We know where the story's going, kind of.
Right.
That if we find ourselves dragging our feet, we should be able to say, you know what, let's stop worrying about trying to figure out where to get a wheelbarrow and just move on.
And walk the 10 meters to the house that we're supposed to be breaking into right now. Yeah,
planning for a half an hour.
and I think in that part of that engagement too has to do with, you know, at what point in this, what are you doing inside of the story? Have you reached a particular moment? Have you reached a tent pole where an encounter happens that one person becomes more engaged in, say, another character? You know. I think maybe that's part of that player expectation as well, that there are going to be times when you're not going to be front and center in that. And you
can't be, though, because you're going to be in situations where your skill set does not match what the hell's going on, and you have to rely on your fellow players, and you have to rely on the GM.
Right. I think that's part of the player expectation of the other players is that, you know, other players will give another player their moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that too much to ask?
No.
From other players?
No, okay. Not at all.
Let's now...
And I think a smart GM will, or I should say, are the ones that set up the situations that allow us to do that as well. I know that you've put us in situations where I know in Deadlands that Buford's skill set works better than anybody else's in it. So it gives my character a chance to shine. But then there's other places where Deputy Dog is better. And I mean that in the kindest of terms.
Of course you do.
You know, but you have set it up that way. And I think that's what smart GMs do.
Whoa. Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's talk a little bit about a little more about expectations you have of yourself as a player.
Well, kind of like what I did prior to meeting here in this little podcast here is I prepared. I've got my notepad on my screen just below the thing here, and I've been reading my notes as we've been going along. And when I mention the word notes, I think it's important for everybody to keep notes.
Yeah.
There have been many times I've gone back to this during our 2 campaigns that we're currently running, just because there's so much information.
Oh my God.
That I just can't remember the name of the drunk stable hand back in Krasden. You know, right. There's times where you just have to have those notes. Especially, I find it helps me keep more locked into what's going on that specific evening as well.
You were even you did something awesome for Krasden that we've kind of
we didn't embrace it.
Yeah, we didn't. I think we need to try to go back to it, and all of us, again, a sort of an expectation of the group to embrace, and that's you set up a wiki essentially that we can fill in. We all have access to. We can fill in with information. We can go back to and reference. It's a great tool, yes, if we were all just to pick it up and run with it. And I think, you know, and speaking of embracing things, I think really all of these expectations kind of boil down to that concept, right? we all game or want to game for the same kind of reason, and it's sort of it's a fun escape from our all the everyday bullshit that we all deal with, and we can come and we can do things that we wouldn't normally do, and that's and we're embracing that world. We're embracing the story that's being told. We're embracing each other. Sounded
And
good.
I also want to throw out that I think it's a creative release for all of us.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. We're all creative people, and when we're doing our normal jobs every day, stuck behind a desk, whatever, we're not necessarily releasing the creative juices we would like to. And for me, that's one of the connections that I adore about gaming.
Agreed. You touched on something there that I'm trying to wrap my head around, and it all comes back to that sort of that release of or the ability to be creative inside of these 3-hour sessions. And there's maybe it's less of an expectation and I think more of a desire. Do you come into these games with a desire to for anything specific, anything particular about a character or a moment that you'd like to have, or what you hope to do in these sessions?
Personally, not so much. Maybe once in a while it does happen where I go into it and I say, you know what, this is something I can accomplish tonight. But for the most part, not. Everything has been, at least with this group, very organic. And when the things do happen, I think that's when it's not planned, and when they do happen, I think that's when it's really special.
Do you have a desire at all to game with a different group of people?
My desire. Yeah, I'm going to answer yes to that,
mm-hmm.
and it's not in a slant towards this group at all. It's the desire to see, because I've pretty much played with the same guys for the past what have you been going on 2.5, almost 3 years now.
Almost 3 years. It's got to be like close to 3 years.
Since we picked up, what was that, Shadowlands? And we mine comes from, since I hadn't gamed for the past 20 plus years, just to kind of see what other people do.
Yeah.
Because we had one person leave our group to join another group, and she's now GMing, and I've got friends with that group, so I've always been interested to seeing, how they do theirs. We have another group that also live streams.
Yeah.
And I've gone out and looked and saw how they do it, and I really like what we do, but there is that curiosity point that, I would like to just go out and see it. And it's not necessarily to say I'm jumping ship to go do this, but, maybe I'll try this for a little bit.
Right. And I think, and I want to make sure we finish my earlier thought here, which was, I certainly don't game with other people right now, was where I was going with that. Because I agree. There's a piece of me that does kind of want to get a sense of what other people do. And what are their expectations? I mean, I talk to other gamers.
Yeah.
I know Laura games with another group than us. And I'm sure that I'm curious that whether, her expectations in that group is different than expectations in our group. But yeah, I mean, it would be, of course, the fear is that I won't enjoy it as much because of the connection that I have with you guys and the expectations. We know each other so well, and we kind of have a sense of how this is going to work. And it's just a pleasant experience all around.
Right. And I think a lot of that has to do with me being curious on how they handle the role play, the ROLE play.
Right.
In it, because I've got some close friends that do it. My daughter and her and my son-in-law, they have a group that do it, and I know that particular group is probably more ROLL play than it is, actually getting into the characters.
Right.
But I do have a group of friends that are all actors, and they're doing it, and that's one that does pique my curiosity. It wouldn't be one that I'd say, hey, let's do a 9-month campaign. It would be, hey, let's do a one-off and see if this fits. I like the way the tea tastes.
Right. Yeah. Because I've talked to other groups or people who game in other groups, and it becomes immediate that their they have very different expectations about playing than playing in a campaign than I do. And yeah, I think like there's focuses on combat. Like they've all mini maxed their characters and they want to go out and they want to beat some shit up and kill some stuff, and murder hobo, and some shit can get pretty crazy out there. Basically, yeah, your ROLL players. I know the system, I know how the dice work. I've mini maxed my character and we're gonna play. Maybe it would be interesting playing in that for a short time. Right?
Yeah,
maybe it would be. I just don't know.
Yeah, because I know that, and I've known people that basically all they want to do is dungeon crawl.
Right.
Let's see how many experience points we can gain. Let's do it that way. And to me, that would get boring after a while. It's kind of like playing World of Warcraft up to 120, and then what the fuck do you do after that?
Wow, that's a reference that's lost on me that you've got. I mean, there's everybody else who's watching right now.
World of Warcraft, and I'm at 120, asking myself, what the fuck am I doing here? Gotta wait for that next expansion.
Any thoughts to wrap things up? Let's
just a couple other expectations for the GM that we've touched on before is sometimes even though we say let us play, no harm, no foul, don't be so frickin' strict with the rules. There are also other times that there are some expectations where you've got to say, yeah, you're being flexible, but there are certain points where you got to be firm. And how you decide which battle you want to fight there, I'm not sure as a GM. But I think there's some times where you just got to say, nope, these are my rules and this is what we're sticking to.
I think part of that is probably just being consistent with that stuff. It's like figuring out, where to be really strict at one point and then not on the same kind of issue, not be strict. I mean, I think that's something as a player that I would get frustrated dealing with. So maybe, we'll call that, and we'll call that like a consistency.
And with that consistency, it's be consistent, be fair.
Yeah.
With it, but a lot of the expectations that I have for GM are still expectations I have for myself and that I have for the other players in the group.
Right. And I guess the one thing that I would add is that everybody should have an expectation of, and that's to have a good time.
Definitely.
Because that's what we're doing. When you stop having a good time, it's time to rethink why you're there. So, hey, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We'll call this the OG cast. Oh, it looks like somebody's going to pop in. Who's coming?
We'll see who it is.
We'll stick. Yep, we're waiting. Who's coming on?
We have no idea.
Mike's trying so hard to jump on right now, but his internet's probably crap. Michael, are you there? Are you there, Michael? Oh, he's trying.
Generating.
I can see you guys.
You sound a little bit to us like
a robot.
Like a robot. You do. You sound a little Max Headroomy. And we can't see you yet. You're on your phone right now? Everyone, Mike, our smart GM, on his vacation, taking time out to try so hard to be a part of this cast.
It's either Mike or number 5. We don't know which.
I don't think it's gonna work, dude. But hey, come hang out with us on the Twitch Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. Brand new game, or not brand new, but brand new episodes of games campaigns that we're running right now. And of course, on Tuesdays right here, 3:00, we'll hang out and we'll talk GM stuff. If you want to join us on the Discords, you have to come see us on the Twitch, because that is where you'll get the invite. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful week. Have a good time. That's what gaming's all about anyway. Thanks, Patrick.
You bet.
OGs, man. Damn straight. Kicking it old school with the basic and the advanced.
And the advanced.
Right? That was the badass stuff right there.